Welcome to Bootstrapped Unicorns. I'm your host, Josh Pies, the chief attention getter and hippie capitalist at C47 Digital Studios. This show is an exploration of entrepreneurship because it's important to hear people's inspirational stories of where they were and where they're going and how they've gotten to where they are. But even more important is to glean all those tactical, actionable data points that we can use on our own journeys as we grow our businesses and we can say, yes, we bootstrapped to become a unicorn.
Bootstrapped Unicorns, it's Josh, and we're back with another episode to drive real entrepreneurial value to you, the entrepreneur, would-be entrepreneur, or somebody who just loves an entrepreneur and you can pass the information on. So I have somebody on who has a personal story, and I frequently get people's personal stories out, and we might do that for a minute. But today, I have Mills Bender from Mills Knows Bills. She is a very successful fractional CFO. Fractional CFO means Chief Financial Officer who is not full-time in your business, but fractionalized across many businesses. All right, the definition's easy to understand when you get that. But she's working with people who have serious revenues. We're talking 7 and 8 figures. So she's dealing with real deal dollars and real world problems. And so I want to learn today, and I think you want to learn today, some anecdotes and stories that might be actionable intel on how you should be thinking about money. Because I'll bet you've got something broken in your brain about money. I know I've got something usually broken in my brain about money. I want to get it fixed. She's helping. And it's good for we entrepreneurs who are good at the things that we do, but maybe shouldn't ever be in the books, to understand the books a little bit freaking better, because it could kill your business. I've seen it happen with my friends. I've almost had it happen with me, and I'll never let it happen again. And I'll bet you've been at risk at least once, maybe even right now. And this could be a rescue project conversation for you. So take this, it's gonna be a fun conversation, but take it seriously today. This conversation is important. I will also tell you that I have firsthand knowledge, not only because I know Mills, but I know many of her customers, that problems are actually solved. She's the real deal. So you're not getting some random person with ideas, you're getting somebody with expertise who is actually going to drive value for you. So I would be remiss if I didn't also bring up that Hire VP has sponsored our show. Interestingly, Scott Ramage, the CEO of Hire VP, is a friend because Mills introduced us. Half of our staff at C47 Films Digital Studios is virtual professionals from Hire VP, but now they're also our sponsor. So if you want to be powered by virtual professionals in your business, this is staff members that you can hire. You can integrate them in as if they're full-time staff, but they're operating in a legal connection and a payment connection in the way that a standard virtual assistant would operate. It's very freeing and it's very powerful. You can get 10% off your first 3 months of activity if you go to hirevp.us/unicorns. This all is about your business being better, and that's one way to do it. If you happen to go to that link and you follow through and you start talking to people, tell Scott I said hi. So without further ado, Mills, hey, how you doing?
Great. I'm number 1, taking notes on your introduction. Number 2, I didn't know that Scott was sponsoring. And number 3, I want to sponsor.
You want to sponsor the show?
Yes.
Oh, freaking A, right. All right, bring it on. Yeah, we can talk about that off camera.
Yes.
Negotiations shall commence. Scott's been wonderful to work with. And I told him a couple months ago, I was like, look, there are so many people I talk to and I'm saying, hey, you need to call Scott. You need to call Scott. And he goes, I should sponsor your show. And it was like an off cuff. And I'm like, I said, yes, you may. And he goes, oh. I'm like, yeah, when somebody volunteers something like that, I just say yes and thank you. So, they did the whole landing page thing, and Chloe had to call me and work things out, and she was talking to Angelica, and it just all worked out. Yeah. It's cool. So, here we are. Let's do the basic thing here. You've got this great business operating where you're helping entrepreneurs be better in their business financially. Give me your elevator pitch. How do you? Because I gave you your elevator pitch. How'd I do?
You did really well, actually. Yeah? For probably only hearing it a handful of times. That's pretty good. Great.
I do this type of thing.
You do. I mean, you're just a little good at it.
All right. Yeah. Not to brag or anything, but but what's your elevator pitch?
So I provide proactive financial guidance for blue collar business owners who generate $1 to $10 million a year.
Awesome. And you have this really cool hook about Vin Henry. Can you talk about who Vin Henry is?
So VIN stands for variable income. Henry stands for high earners, not rich yet. So most of the time when I'm working with business owners, they have a Vin Henry experience where they're making a lot of money, hence 7 to 8 figures. But because of the variability of said revenue, they often feel that variability, and it's more difficult to manage their revenue and or personal income.
Right, and they're frequently not paying themselves.
Or not enough. And,
right. Yeah. And then also they do what I do is I keep reinvesting in the business. Yeah, it's like, oh, we should upgrade all of our cameras. There's a sale. And I was like, yeah, but my family kind of needed a vacation, but the cameras are on sale now. So yeah, it's a thing that we entrepreneurs tend to do. Now, is that a psychological thing? Is that a fear thing? Or is that just an inexperienced thing? You can throw me under the bus.
It's a lot of the things, I would say. Many people like saying, I'm going to reinvest back into the business. I actually recorded a reel on this just in the parking lot last time I was here.
Okay.
It was posted maybe a couple weeks ago. It's not always reinvesting back in the business. That's just a fancy way we like to say we're broke. Because
that's interesting. Go deeper on that.
If you're always reinvesting back in the business, well, of course there's not going to be any money left over.
Right.
But there's a very fine line between reinvesting back in the business and making sure that you can actually put groceries on your table.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we hit that first threshold of the bare minimums of the expenses on both the business side and the personal side.
Yeah.
Then once you have a surplus of cash out of those minimums, that's what you get to start reinvesting back into the business to then hopefully get a return on that investment that you'll feel on the personal side.
Right. Okay.
So it's a little bit of a fine line, and it's not.
How do you identify that? Because obviously every business is going to be at a different point. What are the things that you're looking at? I'm sure you get into people's books, right? So you're getting into the finances, you're looking at bank accounts. I guess walk me through, and of course we don't need to hear your whole secret sauce, but what are you looking for? What are you investigating into? What leads you to conclusions that start changing how a business operates?
Oh, that was a very, very meaty question.
I know. It's going to take the next 45 minutes.
I sure hope so.
I think my watch broke.
Oh, no. Or is it just dead?
Battery. Okay.
All right.
Keep going.
So first and foremost, I have my client establish a personal budget. And the personal budget is broken down into 2 main categories, mandatories and extras. So mandatories, let's say that's $5,000 a month.
Sure.
Mandatories plus extras is maybe $8,000 a month. So we know bare minimum, they need to pay themselves $5,000 each and every month, right?
We have lights on, mortgages paid.
Right. Minimum payments on debt is made, but it's not an exorbitant amount that's going towards dining out or entertainment or things like that, right? We take that dollar amount, we stack on top of that about 25 to 30% for taxes, depending on where they live, and we embed that into their business finances. On the business side, you look at all of the mandatories. So let's just say that the personal mandatories plus taxes, personal expenses or business expenses that are mandatory as well, altogether you need to generate $10,000 a month, right? Everything, right?
Yeah.
Anything in excess of that 10K should be put towards emergency fund savings. Most of my people have none, which is absolutely crazy because not only does that mean that they're insolvent, but they also have very little to fall back on.
Yeah, when something hits the fan, what do? They
leverage that credit card that they just paid off.
Yeah, that's right.
And
now you're back into the cycle.
Right, and it's frustrating. And so it's not always sexy to put money towards the savings. People want to just pay off the debt or they want to just put it towards their investments or whatever it may be, buy the new equipment. But even though that's not sexy, the long-term play of it is though.
Right.
So being able to put money towards savings, which allows you to have that safety net to maintain all of the progress that you've already made. So I look at things like their budget, their cash flow, what percentage of their revenue is going towards cost of goods sold versus operating expenses, what's eating most of those 2 categories.
Do you expect those to be categorized right? I feel like even in my own business, we struggle with that sometimes.
I find that when somebody hires me as their fractional CFO, they either have, I'm going to say, probably 85% of the time when somebody hires me, they have inaccurate, untimely, or non-existent books, which means the remaining 15% of the time they actually do have accurate books. So
that's scary.
It's entirely scary. And so some of the common errors I see is things are not categorized properly. There's not enough categorizations across their books. They're too vague.
Yeah.
Right? I would rather see for example, ads and marketing, right? Advertising and marketing. I don't want just one category. I want to see what you spent on your networking groups, what you spent on your podcast production, what you spent on Facebook ads or Google ads. Because then that allows us to see where you're making the most return on investment.
Right, because if Google ads are flopping hard, Facebook ads are performing at 2% return on the investment, and the podcast just doubled your value.
180,000%.
Then you at least know how to make choices.
Exactly. Yeah. So, they need to have proper books, but then that data allows me to identify what's eating up most of their cash. Why don't they have profit? Being able to educate the business owner on the fact that their profit and loss doesn't actually show everything. If you're taking draws from the company, that's not reflected in your profit and loss.
Right.
So if you have $100,000 of profit at the end of the year, the most commonly asked question I get is, well, where did all that money go? Either your debt payments or your pocket. Those are the two main categories that they'll go to. And so it allows me to see what's the problem area in the business. Is it profit? Is it cash flow? Is it managing the money in general, making sure it's going to the right categories for those returns on investment? How often are we making those adjustments? Sometimes they just go with it and take it as gospel, but that's not needed either. Right.
Okay. And so you've got a lot of clients. What's your experience with the clients coming in? How many of them? I see you've said these 85% today because you've been doing this long enough. Is that true to your client base? You're seeing this through your door, 85% kind of have some kind of screwed up books. How long has it been taking you, once you've identified that there's errors in here, to get them corrected? And can you start finding solutions before they're corrected, or do you have to wait and get the books fixed to be able to actually talk about anything?
It depends on how messed up their books are. Most of the time, I'm able to piecemeal it together and have at least some type of game plan, but I've actually made it a requirement now where if they have no books when they're wanting to hire me, they need to hire a bookkeeper in tandem.
So you don't make them at least, you'll actually start talking to them at least. You don't say, hey, call me in 3 months when you got your books in order?
No, because at that point, if they're looking to hire me, it's because they already know that they need guidance.
Fair. That's fair. All right. So you don't abandon them. You're on the job.
Right. It just looks a little different, and I kind of front load some of the work that I probably wouldn't front load on my end, but that's okay because then it buys them a little bit of time to get caught up. Also, depending on where they're at in their books, I will have their bookkeeper start with where they're at, move it forward, and they can work on catching it up over the next few months.
Okay. I've talked so much about all of this with you in the past that I feel like there's two themes in the types of conversations we have around the types of client problems that you're solving.
Yeah.
And one of them is problems in the sense of problems, where somebody's actually bleeding from somewhere, and they're identifying them, and you're identifying them in the books and helping them get back on track. And then there's that other version where it's like, I am cash rich right now, or I have a problem of excess and I have an opportunity to do something smart with it, but I don't know what. How often is that happening, and what does that conversation look like?
On the more positive side?
On the more positive side, because I don't want to stay negative the whole time. And the thing is, our audience is going to be a split. I mean, we have no clue what their situation is. So, when it's happy, where it's like, I got $1 million in my checking account bearing no interest. Well, that unfortunately is unhappy because you're not bearing any interest and you're losing the value of inflation.
But it's also a good problem to have.
But you got the money to work with. So what are you advising, or how do you look at things like that? How do you have a conversation around it?
So the first thing I look at is how much revenue do they need to retain in their accounts liquid to make sure that they have that emergency fund set up.
Okay.
For example,
what's the number? Is there a formula for that?
The emergency fund, I like to have at minimum 3 months of their operating expenses set aside.
Okay. And if their books are in order, then we should be able to have that number fast.
Exactly. But I also can look at their bank account and rough number it if they don't have books. Typically, if they have $1 million in surplus, though, hanging out and they're looking to invest elsewhere, they have books. So 3 months of operating expenses, not cost of goods sold, because cost of goods sold is only occurring if they actually have the revenue.
Right, and it's attached to the cash flow that you'd want, so we're good there.
So 3 months, right? I'm actually speaking with a client who has Across 3 checking accounts, 1.6.
Really? Just and any of them interest bearing?
No, none. Not a single one.
I'll tell you what, the modern, in fact, you were telling me just the other day, there's one online bank that is doing high interest for just checking. What was the bank?
So Relay
okay.
Financial, they do 1%.
Oh, I'd take that over 0.
Is not bad. And then QuickBooks checking. So if you have a QuickBooks account online, they have partnered with Green Dot Bank, and they will actually give you 5% yield.
It was the Green Dot. That's the one that I was thinking of.
But you have to get it through QBO.
Well, that's just fine by me. I'll shift everything to QBO for 5% on my checking. Why not?
Right. And you can.
Is there a minimum?
That money. There is no minimum.
So basically, okay, there's a catch.
The caveat is there's a general checking account, but then you can separate the money into envelopes. So you can tie
it's the Paul Moskowitz,
Mike Michalowicz.
Mike Michalowicz. That's right. Profit First.
Yeah.
It's a true story. When I was a kid, my mom had a Rubbermaid type envelope. It was actually a note card box, and it was a flip top. And she had the small envelopes in there, and every one of them was labeled. And she'd have groceries.
Yep.
And one of them was cash, and one of them was coupons. And then the next one was, Josh's school clothes or whatever it was. And she'd have the envelopes. So I grew up in a household where we couldn't trust the banking because there were maybe too many hands in the possible banking pot. So all of it was hidden in envelopes. So when I read, you said Mike Michalowicz, I want, who's Paul? I don't even know a Paul Moskowitz.
Well, you were thinking of Paul for Profit.
Sure, you could also just tell me I'm crazy.
No,
but yeah, I grew up with the envelope thing, and I'm reading that and going, I know this system.
Yep.
And so that's cool that they have an envelope system because I'm the guy who has, I think we've got 6 bank accounts for the business.
Which is fine. Yeah. I tend to have multiple accounts across personal and business, but the 5% yield is only on the funds that are in the envelopes. If you're letting it sit in that umbrella, that general checking. And
how fluid can you move them in and out of envelopes?
2 seconds.
Okay. So really, actually, not only are they giving you 5% on your money, but they're training you to be diligent about separating your money and calling out its uses.
Exactly. It's not a bad
All right,
thing.
QuickBooks. I've had some grump about the structure of your stuff there, but I may be a customer again. Because we're not doing that. Yeah, it's we're using wave accounting, and actually, it's so one thing that I'm curious about is, do you demand certain accounting software? Because there's Wave, there's like HoneyBook or something like that.
There's HoneyBook, there's Fresha,
there's a couple of them that they're very user friendly for small businesses who don't really know or maybe want to know the deep parts of the bookkeeping. Yeah. And I like how accessible it is. I think they're serving a part of the market. So it's nothing wrong with them. But right now they're not giving me 5%. So but for you, is that a play? Are you prescribing that often?
So talking about QBO?
Well, you're talking about it, but are you saying, hey, client, move here?
I tend to, most of them already have QBO. Yeah. So I tend to then just make them aware of the fact that, in the hamburger menu, there's this nice little snazzy button that you can click where you open the account and it takes 2 seconds and you get 5% yield. And then I'll typically handle the movement of money for them.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just because a lot of them are, they don't know how to set it up or they don't have time to set it up. So sure. I set it up from their main financial institution where their operating account is. I just do a recurring payment. And then because I have access to QBO, I just make sure that the money gets divided. And then they get that yield. So I have one client who's gotten $1,300 in the last 12 months just by having the money in the account.
That's a cruise for a couple these days. Mm-hmm. That literally, for small business, that's revolutionary.
Mm-hmm. The way he looked at it was that's 1 month's worth of pay for a new hire.
Ooh, at hirevp.us. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I like it. So what are you excited about right now when it comes to working with your clients? So, do you have any things where you're like, ooh, we are solving something here? And don't name drop, obviously, because you've got confidentiality, but what is it that you're working on right now where you're like, oh, I'm going to be proud of that when that's done?
I think, so selfishly, I really get joy out of the fact that I get to learn a lot about a lot of different businesses.
Okay,
so
that's cool.
That keeps me really entertained.
Sure.
It's also cool because I know that the business owner is then taking ownership of his or her finances, thus making a more sustainable business for their employees. So I know by helping them,
you're helping a whole bunch.
Hundreds of other people. And there's been conversations of me coming in and helping the employees by just providing some of my courses for them.
Oh,
so it's like
that's wonderful.
Retention benefit.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I want to do to help out. But I think one of my favorite success stories is actually a client who generates the least amount of revenue top line.
Oh, okay.
Has been with me since maybe about 2 years now.
Okay.
And when they came to me, had $7 in their bank account.
You're expensive compared to $7, right? Mm-hmm. That was a massive leap of faith for this person.
Mm-hmm. They saw the value, but they're like, I cannot afford you.
Okay.
I said, that's okay. I will give you this, this, and this for free.
So you believed in them too?
I did.
Okay.
Because they were a serial entrepreneur. They had just come into a ton of bad luck. And that day that we were meeting, their only client just canceled randomly.
Oh my God.
So $7 with no prospect of income, had a business idea, but didn't know how to actually see it come to fruition.
Wow.
We created a business plan, created the structure, created the programs, the pricing, everything. This person has been living with family for the last 7-8 years. Moved into their first place by themselves.
Oh,
for
look
the
at
first
that.
time in a long time. Now we're starting to save money to purchase a home and a car. And so it's been really cool seeing this person value the not glamorous side of money management.
Sure.
Because although this person makes the least amount of revenue out of all my clients, has the third highest net worth.
What? Mm-hmm. Really?
Mm-hmm. It's not what you make, it's what you keep and how you employ it.
I want you to go right back over that again, because this is, that is actually shocking to me in all the right ways. But you're telling me there's a whole bunch of people out there that have higher revenues, remarkably higher. Because I know the range. You've got some clients who are clearing 8 figures in revenue.
Easy.
Right. You would expect somebody who's clearing 8 figures in revenue to be able to grab at least 10% for themselves between salary and profits, you would think. Because we have these business conversations all the time, right? And it's funny, I was listening to Russell Brunson the other day, and the grand wizard of ClickFunnels. And he was mentioning he's got about 120,000 users. I know they're at $297 a month. I did the math. I know that about 30% of them have their upsells to the other products. I knew very quickly that they're making about $400 million a year based on their mainline product. And that Russell's he's got business partners, he's got 400 employees. I was doing the math. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know what Russell's taken home. And we all, if we're entrepreneurs, we do this with other people's businesses all the time because we want to learn from other people's structures and try to apply it to ourselves. I try not to be jealous. I try to learn from it. And so I hear 8 figures. Yeah. And I figure this person's got to have 7 figures a year, 10% at the lowest level of 8 figures that they're putting away.
Not all the time.
And that's amazing that your smallest revenue, can I ask how small is small?
That person is on track now to generating a little under $250,000 a year.
Not even 250,000. And comparatively to the biggest in your group, what he or she has kept home.
I will say that spots number 1 and spots number 2 are filled with the top 2 highest revenue.
Okay. That's all right. So that aligns a little bit more with what my assumptions would have been, but you got a lot of customers. So, oh my.
This person takes the 3rd spot, and then everybody else who's making the next revenue up from that person is $750.
Okay.
A year. All the way up to about $3 million.
So the lesson in this for me is that if you're disciplined with the plan and it's a good plan, you can build a notable net worth but the discipline and the right plan connected to that discipline is seemingly everything.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful, but how many we entrepreneurs who are risk takers, who are out there in some kind of version of our hustle and grind, are maybe very disciplined about the thing that we're passionate about, but lack discipline financially. Even if we feel like we're partially disciplined, partially isn't fully. Mm-hmm. And so now we're subject to a lost opportunity. And that's really what it is. It's opportunity cost.
It is. It absolutely is. And so I say that as means of encouragement because this person actually called me yesterday and said, I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. Oh, no, you're not. You're doing everything right. But it's so easy to compare to what other people are doing on social media, and it's just not accurate.
Yep.
I was at a meetup maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. You actually had dinner with some of us there.
Oh, okay. The one here in Kissimmee.
Yes. Yeah. And some of my clients were in that room, and I brought it to the table because I was like, listen, I feel kind of weird that I make less top line revenue than most of my people. I'm not 7 figures yet. I'm definitely not 8 figures yet. Mm-hmm. And so I asked, I was like, does it bother any of you? And the one response I got back was, it bothers me that you take home more. I make less, but I take home more. This person makes over 3 times the amount that I make top line and brings home in a year what I brought home last month.
So their revenue is remarkably high comparatively, and they're making the same amount of money as you. And in some ways, that is business, though. Margins change across different industries and different delivery styles. And so I don't think it's wholly fair business to compare take home. Mm-mm. But at the same time, there is that reasonable note to say, like, hey, we're both in service industries. We're both largely intellectual industries. We don't have a large cost of goods sold. So maybe they can compare and you're closer to 1-to-1. And then they go, oh, gee, I must be doing something wrong because maybe they should have 3x what you have if they were playing the same game.
Right.
Right. So, and that, because you're not a restaurant, right?
No.
So we can't compare those necessarily.
Exactly. But I will compare to industry standards. So I will pull up publicly traded companies, analyze their P&Ls, and bring it to my clients and say, this is how this company is doing. This is where you're doing far better. This is where we get to pick up the slack a little bit. That's
interesting. So you'll go to a similar industry business that has public information, probably with a lot more zeros if they're publicly traded.
Right. So I compare ratios.
You can still extrapolate based on ratios.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So in my experience, a lot of the larger businesses out there have found economies of scale that affect their bottom line. And frequently they actually were operating at a loss, kind of that Amazon model of Jeff Bezos was losing for 17 years or whatever it was before they were winning. And boy, then they were suddenly winning.
Yeah.
And so big business, I'm so used to having some kind of economy of scale that it might skew the comparison. Do you run into that?
Sometimes, but normally that's when I have the conversation with the business owner anyway. And I say, listen, there's such a huge disparity between these two numbers. I see that they have this line item in this area, which you do not have. I researched it. It's probably because of the fact that they have nobody in-house, for example.
Right.
Their subcontractors are going to be far greater than their payroll number in terms of percentages.
Yeah.
So how can we then, looking at that, start structuring your business to mirror that as much as possible, because 90% of my clients want to eventually sell their business. So in order to sell their business, they need to make it desirable to sell, which means they need to get out of it.
Right. It needs to be transferable. You can't be the face of the business. You can't be the delivery agent of the product or service. You've got to get back out to that C-suite level, or even hire somebody C-suite and remove yourself.
Right.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
So we do look at it, but we take it with a grain of salt. It's more so from a, let's look at the ratios in comparison. You know, OPEX out of income, cost of goods sold out of income, profit out of income. Yeah. Those types of metrics. And then we say, well, what do you want to establish as your personal goals? Now let's track that and see what we need to do to get there.
And so that's interesting. I'm hung up for a second on the idea that a lot of the business owners you work with want to sell.
Why?
No, it's just that's exciting to me because I love the idea of business. So, I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've had a number of businesses, not all of them that I love. I'm actually fortunate now that I'm insanely passionate about the work that we do right now. But at the same time, every business I've owned, I've always in the back of my mind gone, this is actually not only is a business that sells a product or service, but it is a sellable asset that I eventually want to harvest and sell. And I've always had that mindset. And sometimes I wonder how alone I am in that. It's interesting to hear that there's more people out there thinking that way. And then I guess the question is fractional CFO. Though I felt like I understood what you do. I'm understanding in the moment right now that there's a business planning capacity that you have where you're actually looking at not just the finances of the business, but the ramifications of what these line items mean in a way that affects business operations. Talk to me about that. What type of conversations are you having around that?
So let's make it very clear. I do not have the experience or expertise to be a business broker.
Right.
I'm not.
No, you're getting things ready for an M&A type person.
But here's what I do. I bring them in, have them value the business, see what they're valued at right now if they wanted to go to market. All right, let's say you were my client, okay?
Okay.
Let's say that
put me under the microscope.
You wanted to have $300,000 a year in income every year when you retire. Okay. That means you need to have an invested portfolio of about $10 million.
Right.
3% year over year. Okay. $10 million. Let's say that you want your entire strategy for retirement to be your business. We have a broker come in, value your business. You're currently valued at $5 million, but we know you want to get to 10. So how are we going to bridge that gap of the 5? I'm going to have that M&A person tell me a little bit about what you could do, but then I'm going to look at the financial strategy behind making that actually come to reality within the time frame that you want it to come to reality.
Wow.
And every year we have the valuation updated, making sure that we're continuing on the right trend.
Sure.
As you get closer, maybe 2 years out, making sure that the taxes are set up in place, you're out of the business as much as possible. We start with the go-to market strategy of selling, and that's where the broker really has their area of expertise. I just help you make sure that you're putting the money in the right places to fill the roles that you need to get the business valued to that 10 million. And then you sell it, you invest it, whether it's in traditional or alternative investments, and you live off of $300,000 a year.
Or more.
Or more.
Yep. Yeah, wow. So there's just an inordinate amount of, research and strategy. And then back to that word discipline. That's really awesome because I'll tell you, and we'll talk more off camera here. But as we're growing our business and we're really refining the business model, there's days where I get in operations mode, where now we're dissecting a standard operating procedure, we're reassembling the standard operating procedure, or it's delivery mode where we've got clients coming in and products got to go out and we're focused on that. Or, and I'm always selling. It's ABC, always be closing. And so I'll do that as well. And so you spend a lot of time doing that, but it doesn't actually leave time for the brain space to step out and go, now I'm going to get a business valuation so that I can dissect my own finances and set a 10-year plan in order to accomplish X. I don't think I've had the luxury of that ever. And I'll bet the vast majority of business owners might not have even thought of it. I feel like I've thought of elements of it, but I'm certainly not the way you've described it. And so it seems like a very important exercise. Like if any of the business owners who actually believe they're going to harvest, and I'll say that's so hard.
Or even just pass it down to their children if you're going to do a different type of financing where you're going to recuperate some of that money from your child.
It's part of your retirement, but it's part of the legacy.
Exactly.
Whatever the plan is, it's a plan. And you got to work the plan. But at the same time, once you're out of the business, you don't want to be eating cat food. Right? Yeah. As we've established in previous conversations, I already hate cats. That's why it's not bootstrapped cats. No, people never say that in entrepreneurship anyhow. But okay, so entrepreneurs, I told you this is going to be one of those lesson shows. And I feel like and I'm putting myself right in there, we don't actually step out of our business enough to look at our business in order to do the real planning work that would allow us to set up to that next level of success. And you're probably just like me, personal development junkie. You'll listen to the gurus and you read the woo-woo books and you go to the thing where Tony Robbins tells you to jump up and down, and we get all of these dopamine highs. But what it never really comes back to is actually doing the work and getting down to the brass tacks. And I feel like you almost talk more common sense and hard work than anybody I've actually had on this show. Yeah, well, it's true, but it's also a little challenging, right? Because think about how even I came into this industry. So I tripped into film and television and entertainment. Absolutely tripped. I've told you the story and I've told it on the show, go hunting for it. But I really did trip into it. Had a lot of great business background. So I knew how to become a producer, but learned how to be an entertainer, and really learned this by skin in my knees, blood on the knuckles, and fought my way to a point where we're here now. And then, in that time, I've spent so much time on all of that, the way every plumber, every carpenter, every tradesman out there who ends up hanging a shingle usually is going, I can make more money doing this for myself. I'm going to go do it myself. So now they're blood, sweat, and tears during the day and working as hard as they can with the remainder of their energy at night, eventually hoping to get to delegate something somewhere somehow, but probably not doing it great. And I'll bet the only thing they're doing, for most people who would be listening, is maybe they've got a bookkeeper, but they don't have a fractional CFO or an actual full-time CFO looking at the whole picture and the long-term plan, so you can set the short-term plan to get to the long-term. I don't think any of us have that.
It's not most commonly talked about. I mean, once you find it in certain circles, it's talked about all the time, but it's not commonly discussed.
How many people come to you and go, I know what a CFO does. They actually do. They've got it pinned, and you're just the person that they're looking for. And how many come to you going, I think I got a Megillah on my hands right here, and I got a little bit of an ouch, a couple of pounds of boing, and and I need something. But they're at the I don't know what stage. I mean, what's the percentage of I get it, I just want you around, and the oh crap, I got a thing?
So it depends on what rooms you put yourself in, right? I've put myself in rooms where it's not uncommon to hear about a fractional CMO or a fractional COO. So adding fractional CFO to the conversation is not...
But getting the fractional part doesn't necessarily mean they understand what you could be in the scheme of your value.
I would say that 10% truly know the full picture of what I can do. Even now, I'd say most of my clients will say, hey, can you help me with this, this, and this? And it's a very easy yes for me.
Sure.
So it's still educating them on all of the scope I can do for them. But that's why I set the cadence of the deliverables, and I just make it an included piece. So when somebody new then comes to me, most of my clients are coming by word of mouth now.
Sure.
So
yeah. Well, somebody's successfully meeting their goals, and somebody goes, well, how'd that change? And they go, well, I'm working with Mills.
And then they do the educating for me. So now once somebody comes to me and wants to have a conversation with me, it's very infrequent now that I have somebody who's looking for a skill set that I don't provide. Okay. Well, and that is fair. That seems to make sense. I just feel like I'm very clear that so many entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship without a holistic awareness of all of the facets of being in business. And one of the most common pain points is their relationship with their money, their understanding of how to operate with money in a business as compared to their personal life. And so with all of that in mind, even if they have fantasies of harvesting at some point, which I think most people have thought about it, but it doesn't mean they took the thought seriously. But a lot of people took the thought seriously. They don't know what to do about it. How do you get from today to the point where you would be removed enough from your very healthy, viable, covetable business that somebody would walk up with, 4x, 12x, 20x EBITDA to get you to leave and let them run away with your business?
I don't think most people know how to get there. And so the idea that you're proposing a pathway that you could actually talk about is actually totally news in this moment. I'm hearing it first. I never put that as part of the service offering you do. And I'm just worried you're going to get like a billion phone calls off of this because, you know, I am, like I told you, you know this, I'm a serial entrepreneur with flaws. And I'm one of a billion of them.
We all have our areas that we struggle, right?
Right.
So it's a matter of talking with the people who are really good at what they do and leveraging their help. My weakest area as a business owner is hiring.
I get it.
I'm so bad at hiring. I've made maybe 2 really great hires in my life. Now, Scott is great at hiring.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hire VPs figured it out for us.
Phenomenal. He's figured it out for me.
Yep.
But beyond that, because he and I have such a great friendship, outside of the roles that he could help fulfill for me, he's already offered to interview on my behalf for US-based folk.
He's
like, don't even be in the conversation. I got it. I know what you need, right? But I also do similar things for him too. So it's a matter of knowing what you don't know and then finding the person who you trust enough to share that with to help you bridge the gap. Because if you're looking to scale and you want to sell your business, but you need to, I know that you already know a franchise guy, but I'm going to use this as an example.
Sure.
You want to franchise it to bridge your $5 million gap from 5 to 10, right? Well, I'll introduce you to a franchise person.
Sure.
I don't do franchises.
Yeah, your network is strong.
Exactly. So that's where you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to know somebody who knows at least some of the answers and can help you fill in the other gaps.
Yeah, I'm finding that my network actually helps me solve my Socratic reality. So are you familiar with Plato's anecdote about Socrates going to the top of Mount Delphi?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm going to storytell for a second.
Please do.
So as it is told in the Platonic writings that Socrates wanted to find the root of all knowledge. And so he, summited Mount Delphi and got there and he met the oracle at Delphi and he said, what is knowledge? And it ended up being gnothi suauton, which I'm probably butchering the Greek at this point. I used to be able to read ancient Greek.
I did not know that about you, sir.
Yeah, random, degree in philosophy, they make you do it. But it means know thyself. And know thyself, Socrates kind of went down a rabbit trail and discovered that his maxim for the rest of his life is the one thing that I know is that I know nothing.
Yeah.
And when you go deeper, what he's really keying in on is in the world universe level of all that could be known. It is so infinite that what little you do know, as far as you can know it, is a grain of sand on a beach.
Yeah.
It is the nothing. And really, I mean, if we want to get really existential about it, what you think you know gets modified by the realities of all else that could be known to a point where every time you bring in a new input, you probably question the current thing that you know and you realize you didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to live as a student of philosophy in a way where I'm keenly aware of what I can't be and what I don't know. Yet at some point you got to have the confidence to walk in a room and go, I know this. And it's very dichotomous reality that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
But it's a good maxim when you're a business owner to realize that, yes, okay, you are good at the thing or maybe the small subset of things, but you know nothing about the rest of it. So find somebody who does. You've got to have that Socratic attitude to be able to eventually, whatever it is, and I'm going to use the word scale. You want to scale your business. Not necessarily that like Amazon version of scaling, but you need to be able to scale your efforts. Right. You need to be able to scale your success to a point where it is actually success. And you've got to be Socratic about it. And so you're filling a very critical thing because I think we entrepreneurs have not only we're all living that kind of Socratic reality, but one of our most common blind spots is our finances. We don't know that part. And interesting, you know bills.
I do know bills.
Yeah.
No, my husband's not Bill, but
that story was weird.
That was weird.
Yeah.
It was just an older guy checking people in at Animal Kingdom. Is your husband Bill? No. No. Why would I know multiple of them?
Yeah, seriously. That just goes, some people just don't know how to make small talk.
Yeah.
And clearly greeters at theme parks are failing at this.
Yeah. It's all right.
Odd. So tell me your favorite success from the last 12 months.
From the last 12 months?
Yeah. I'm trying to give you enough time span to pick the epic one, whatever that means.
Okay, so I'm going to choose a financially based one.
Well, it is the topic of the day. It's the soup du jour.
Soup du jour. There was a gentleman, I think I told you this story probably a couple months ago, but it's probably one of the biggest things I've been able to do. Generated $13.2 million within a year.
Nice.
In that same year, lost 1.5.
Oh, he was negative. So 13.2, 14, 14.7.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Within a few months.
Gambling problem?
No.
Okay.
No, scaling and just fraud and fraud against him.
I was going to say, he wasn't the fraudster. He was frauded.
Frauded. Yeah.
Defrauded.
So also books were all sorts of jacked up. I mean, 3.2 in receivables, but only half of that was actually receivable.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it just, cash flow was just totally amuck. And anyway,
Amok.
discombobulated. We were able to start recuperating $14,000 a week in expenses.
God.
Which ended up starting to save him half of that 1.5.
Okay.
Cost. And then we talked about increasing sales price.
Okay.
Which bridged another little piece of that.
Okay, so that's scary for business owners. I'm going to lose customers if I increase my sales price. Oh, we're going to have lower conversion rates, all of these fears. Uh-huh. How did that go?
So he increased pricing by, I'll use myself as an example too. I've increased my pricing before by 25%, but I only lost 8%.
Okay, so you're definitely up. Mm-hmm. Okay. And
I find that most of my people still tend to be up.
Okay. That's awesome.
Because even if you lose the 2 or 3 people, those 2 or 3 people you probably wanted to stop working with anyway.
It frequently is the bottom of the barrel. Yeah.
So it's kind of okay.
No value judgment on who they are, but for whatever reason, it's a mismatch.
Right. It's, the whole 80-20 rule. 80% of your time is spent on the lower 20% of the revenue. And so you find yourself, you might be losing a couple people, but you find yourself with like quadruple the amount of time.
Right.
Which then means you're still up in that revenue, but then you have the capacity to bring in even more revenue.
Right.
At that price point. So it ended up working out well, but then we bridged the gap while figuring out the whole receivable situation with some loans, and that was probably my favorite story.
How's he sleeping? He or she? We don't know who. Yeah.
Not great right now.
No?
But lots of, anything that you can imagine has happened to this person
Got
at
it.
the same time.
Yeah.
But there's a path forward. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
And it's not a train.
Nope.
Good.
It's a meadow.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
that's great.
It's been a tough few months.
Yeah, I remember you had a Job-like character.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is that one?
That's that one, yeah. But just now starting to see the end of it.
That's great.
Grateful that they did not stop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Well, so I'm inspired, and we're going to talk offline about a whole bunch of stuff. What is the future? So actually, you know what? No, I don't want to talk about the future. Tony, do we know how far into the show we are today? Are we an hour in, 2 hours in?
48 minutes.
48 minutes? Well, it means I got a little time. That's good.
Right.
So, one thing that I'm keenly aware of is that you are still in your 20s.
Yes, sir.
And it's interesting to me that you are an old soul with such great clarity at 28. I think you're 28, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you've got all of these great successes on behalf of your customers, and it's just cool. But you arrived at this place somehow. How did you become Mills Who Knows Bills?
So I actually attended UCF.
Okay.
And about 6 weeks into my first semester, I found myself with $1.50 in my checking account. And
what year was this?
This was fall 2014.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what the going rate for a McDonald's cheeseburger was. I don't think you could afford one.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And at the time, I was deciding to study business management, which was my nice way of saying undecided. I didn't really know what I wanted, but I didn't want to put undecided. And I realized I was really financially illiterate.
Oh.
And I didn't know what I didn't know, because that's really what started the downward spiral of how did I get here? Mm-hmm. How can I make sure I never get here again? Mm-hmm. What should I be doing with my money? How do I open up a credit card? I didn't even have a credit card at that point.
Probably a blessing.
Probably a blessing, absolutely. How are credit scores calculated? Should I start investing? What the heck even is a stock, right? And then I started asking myself all these different questions that not only did I not know the answer to, but it made me realize, what am I not asking myself? There's probably a lot about finances that I'm not asking myself simply because I've just never been exposed to it.
Feels like a very Socratic moment.
It was a very Socratic moment, and I decided to brush everything under the rug. In that moment.
Sorry, I didn't expect that. I decided to go to school for finance.
No. I decided to stick my head in the sand and acted like nothing was happening.
Blinders. Oh my God.
So
that's scary.
It wasn't until my second semester in college, I took an intro to finance class.
Okay.
Every business major was required to take the intro to every business major.
Yeah, right? That makes sense.
And so I had always been great at math, always loved math. It came easy to me, but I was not great at money. So when I took my finance class, I thought, oh, this is like math, but money had a child. Sounds
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so I learned how to use the financial calculator. I learned how to calculate interest and payment and future value. And I thought it was really cool because I felt like I was learning something that I had never been exposed to before. And so that was also the semester I met Joe.
Okay.
As I was going through my courses, and really throughout the end of that semester, I was falling in love with that class. I mean, it was the only one I was excited to go to.
Cool.
And so I talked to Joe. We had only known each other for a few months at this point, and I said, I think I'm going to change my major to finance, but I don't know if I'm smart enough. And I remember he was studying at his desk, and he turned around and he was like, how are you going to know if you don't try? I'm like, well,
wow.
All right.
The man speaks wisdom.
He very, very much did so. And that semester, I changed my major to finance. I thought, you know what? If I'm going to go for it, I'm going to go for it. And so I specifically sought out the most difficult electives that the major had. But then I paired those electives with internships that mirrored them. So I took a commercial real estate class, and I had a commercial real estate internship the same semester. I took portfolio analysis, but I was also a financial advisor intern.
Who told you to do that?
That was just what made sense to me. I thought to myself, book knowledge is only going to get me so far. If I am exploring a new major and I have no idea what types of roles are out there and what I could do with this degree, I should get the real world experience of it too. Because I'm a kinetic learner anyway. And so a lot of the business professors are kind of boring, let's be honest.
Hey,
so
I've been there.
I need to understand it from a real world perspective to really understand the book knowledge, but also let me get both perspectives to see if I actually enjoy it rather than having rose-colored glasses in a classroom.
I just find that, and it doesn't surprise me that you had this thought, but at the same time, that's a very unique perspective for somebody as young as you were in this story to be able to pre-plan that. And it falls very much in line with the way you see the world and how with your product offering. So none of that really should surprise me, but it's very, there was wisdom there that is beyond your years in that point of the story. So I had to ask. So continue.
What was the question again?
Well, the question is, how did Mills become knows bills?
So all that to say, by the time I was graduating from college, the internship and the classes that I most enjoyed were around financial management, on the, financial advising and education, all of that side of it. And so when I graduated from university, I got my 215 and my Series 7. and I became a licensed advisor, which you probably did not know about me.
I didn't, because I know you don't ever talk about that as a service offering. I don't know if you've kept the licenses. Okay, but that background is extremely useful.
It is.
Yeah. Wow.
Not just the knowledge itself, but the analytical thinking that had to be employed to get through that.
Right.
So I became a licensed advisor. I started working the field, and I absolutely hated it.
I'll bet.
I thought, I'm not actually solving anybody's problems. And this is not to say that financial advisors don't solve problems. It just wasn't solving it the way I wanted to solve it.
Sure.
Right? I was putting a Band-Aid on somebody's problem rather than antiseptic on the wound. And so I left the industry. I became a mortgage processor simply because I was newly graduated, newly married, and your girl needed money.
Sure.
But
we've all had those jobs. I was a nightclub bouncer.
I can see you doing that. But I actually learned about money from a different perspective, the financing side and the approval process and all of that. And so although it was my least favorite experience, the knowledge I gained from it, I will be forever grateful for.
I'm sure.
And so as I left that company, I started having this desire to do more. I've never been the type of person who wanted to just sit there and twiddle my thumbs to get my full 40 hours a week pay.
Yeah.
If I got my job done in 20 hours, let me go home.
Right. But pay me for the whole week.
But pay me for the whole week.
Right.
Right. Just because I'm extra efficient doesn't mean I should be knocked for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started taking some personality and career tests because I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I feel very unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
The first one came back and said, business owner. Wrong. Took another one. Business owner. Wrong. By the third one, all three were wrong.
Right. They're all broken.
All broken. And so at that point, I decided to move into my family's print shop, where I was doing the financial analyst and CFO side as well as some sales.
Okay.
And that was really the start of looking at the financial management from the business owner side. When I had my second shoulder surgery in October 2019, I had a lot of time on my hands, and thus the idea for MKB was born.
Okay.
But it started as a YouTube channel because I didn't want to be a business owner, remember?
Right.
But then when COVID happened a few months later, I needed to pivot. And so I pivoted and started MKB as coaching, doing fractional work behind the scenes.
Sure.
Not marketing it really. And then now I've been marketing it, and this is how we've been born.
That's outstanding.
Thanks.
Yeah, I knew there was going to be a tale to tell, as I didn't know where it was going to necessarily go. And I had forgotten about the family business, which also, how long has your family owned that business?
My father started it in 1983.
I find there's a bit of a trend that when there's an entrepreneurial story in a family that takes root like that, it tends to breed at least one or more entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
There's in my own family multiple entrepreneurs, and actually I would say fewer of my parents' generation have jobs than either own their job or are actually entrepreneurs. And so it was almost a foregone conclusion, though I had not thought that. And, I didn't put it to thought as a kid that I would become the entrepreneur necessarily. But when you understand that lifestyle and you understand, that you can go create something, and there's a lot of people who have maybe never been raised in having that thought, but you were. So it was kind of, you were a little bit predetermined and predestined because somebody had set a path and of understanding of a way of being that many people just won't have. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
I would agree with that because I'm one of 6, and half of us are entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I look at my family, and my sibling level, we've got one teacher, but my brother's been the number one used car and new car salesman for Subaru in the country 4 different times because he knows how to go do that thing, right? Yeah. And then my sister and her husband own 2 major businesses, and my younger brother is flipping houses, and so everybody just starts doing their thing because there were right, wrong, or indifferent, however their relationships went. The example from How to Make Money was you go make your money.
Yeah. You go figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not as complicated as we tend to make it out to be.
At least starting, it's not that complicated. I think the long run of storybook type growth doesn't come until you've found the right people around you.
That's fair.
You know, and we all know somebody who's doing really well flipping houses. We all know somebody who's done something that's not quite a business. It's more an activity where they're managing their financial life and calling it a business. You know, because a business is different.
It is.
You know, there's employees, there's a product, there's a service.
Yeah. It's an asset in and of itself.
It is.
Or should be.
Yeah, right. And honestly, even I look at your business right now, it is actually a practice.
I would agree.
And at some point, when you train a team who can replicate your skills and eventually you could harvest your own practice, then you will have sold a business.
Exactly.
And for the first time in 20 years, my business is actually a business. We don't have a whole bunch of freelancers who all lean on Josh's creative. You know, we now have a defined structure for our business and systems and processes are in place where it's scalable, it's repeatable, it is predictable. And therefore, my practice is now a business. And so I think a lot of the entrepreneurs who are watching this probably own practices, not businesses, and haven't even identified that yet. And there's zero wrong with it. Both of them can be wonderful as long as your eyes are open on it.
And as long as you have it structured within your definition of success and what you
boy, isn't that malleable?
It is. It is. I mean, I was talking with somebody last week who said, I want $1 million bottom line every year. Well, why? I don't know, it just sounds cool. That's not good enough why.
Well, and honestly, you won't get there because you don't have a strong enough why.
Exactly.
I mean, that is not a target.
It's not. I thought I wanted a 7-figure top line business until I actually crunched the numbers. I was like, oh, I could get the profit I want by doing 30% less.
Sure.
Why? Let's start with that. And then we can talk about scaling. Because you're right. Right now I own a practice. But my goal is to start taking things off of my plate.
Right.
And that's what I'm implementing now.
But yeah, right. And that takes time. It takes strategy. None of this happens overnight.
No.
Yeah. My goal personally is to, at the point where I'm high enough net worth, I would like to every 6 months gift $500,000 to a nonprofit in need attached to a trustee who will assure that the need is filled in a way that's got business practices. I see so many philanthropists waste their money on nonprofits with good intentions and bad execution. And my dream is to get to a point where I've got so much revenue, or actually so much in my own pocketbook, so many investments that $500,000 shows up every half year with like clockwork. And then I can find the problems in the world. I don't need my name on a building. I don't care about any of that. But it drives me nuts that I can't solve problems.
Yeah.
And so I am dogmatically pursuing this because my family needs the security, of course. That's always been the bottom line. But my secret passion is that I want to be a crazy philanthropist, one of those eccentric Doc Brown from Back to the Future characters who's hard to get a meeting with and out there doing things that people can't even imagine.
Yes.
And I never want to be written up. I don't care about newspapers. I mean, buy me a cupcake. I'll be fine. And that's my goal. But I've been living with that goal for so long that I see it as nothing but reality. I've just got to get there. And I think that type of goal if you get it that real for yourself, it will happen, or some version of it will happen. Yeah. But I want $1 million for $1 million sake. That is a failure of a goal.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And it was funny because Joe and I are very strong in our faith. You know this
clearly
very much about me. And we go to a church that has placed a lot of emphasis on high schoolers and younger. I mean, I've never seen a church pour into their students the way that they have.
That's a worthy emphasis.
It's beautiful to see the change in that church. And at the end of last year, they asked for an end of year additional giving. And the goal was $250,000. And Joe and I, on the drive home, looked at each other and said, wouldn't it be cool for us just to be able to cut a check by this point next year for the full amount that they want? And so...
See, need feels really good.
And that's kind of our goal, because they have already given us so much for our kids. Let's give back as much as we can. So
right.
I don't have the wherewithal to do $500,000 every 6 months. I think.
Why not though? So you've picked a goal and you're happy with it.
The
Right.
mental part of it, right? But
you know what? And hang out with enough billionaires, which I've hung out with a whole bunch of billionaires, and watch how they think and operate for an hour or two. And you realize that when they have a thought or they have an idea, they either say it's dead here or it's live here. And if it's live, it is alive and forever. And they just assume they speak as if it's real.
Yeah.
They act as if it's real. They expect people to treat it as if it's real. If it is a name of right. No, you will join me in this belief right now. And if you don't join me, there's the corner, go sit. And that is, and it's not even mean. There's nothing about it. It's just, there is a natural and instant belief system that some of these high net worth visionaries have. And it's usually the visionaries. You know, there's some billionaires out there who have been the implementers who have participated in profits. They're not necessarily the same, and that's fine. That's who they are. But the visionary billionaires, it just is.
Yeah.
And actually it's kind of the definition of faith. Mm-hmm. You know, it's you're acting as if something is before it actually is. It's faith. And so, you know, you currently for your life's journey have faith for that 250 clearly. Yeah. You know, I have faith for high enough net worth that I can drop $500,000 twice a year without blinking. And the only, actually, you know what's my biggest concern about it right now is I have to identify the humans who are going to be the trustees that I can trust to deliver the money. And so I'm almost hung up on trying to find the people that I can attach to the money that I know is already there.
Yes.
And I'm saying this on a podcast that's going to be live and people are going to see it. And I want you, a quick lesson here. Operate that way. I'm saying it out loud. And if 20 years from now somebody points this out and goes, well, Josh, it isn't that way, call me on it and let's talk about what my life journey's been. Because I promise you, thinking this way with this level of clarity will allow me to hit a point that is at least as good, if not better than the version that I'm aiming for. So I will have 20 years from now, when you point this out at me, I promise you, I will have a story that will have zero apologies. It's not like, oh, I missed the mark. It might be different because life is weird and life has twists and turns, but it will be equally, if not greater value than the current vision I'm pitching you right now. I've lived with this picture in my head for a decade. It hasn't changed. It's not gonna change. We're on our way. So call me on it. I mean it, but you should live this way too. It's actually fun.
It is actually really fun.
Yeah, and I think that desire you guys have, you and Joe writing that check. And also what I love about that is church-wise, most churches, and I'm sure you're at a church that would not have the culture where they're going to pull you up on stage and do the big check thing and glorify the money, right? Right. I know you don't, but what's cool is it's just that's not how it will go. A couple of elders and trustees will know because they have to deal with the funds. Right. A couple of great things will start happening, and maybe the rumors out there that something happened because people have big mouths. But it's just going to stop there because all you did was the right thing.
Well, here's the really cool part. The check doesn't have to come from Mills Bender either.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Mills is my nickname. So
yes,
there's not a lot of connecting of the dots.
Does everybody call you Mills?
Most.
What's your mom call you?
Mimi.
No. I expected Amelia.
No, she called me Mimi. Nobody calls me really by my real name except for Joe.
When you're in trouble, what does your mom call you? I'm
not in trouble anymore though. And I was never in trouble, Josh. Amelia, Kathleen, you get your butt over here.
See, that is what I expected. Yeah. I have a feeling you were a hard to contain child.
I really wasn't.
No?
No, they would threaten to take away my books.
That's funny.
It's not funny. That's kind of sad.
What a punishment.
Yeah.
So here we are. We need to make sure people can find you. There's going to be somebody who watches this who actually desperately needs you and needs to reach out. And there's going to be a whole bunch of people who need to hang out with your content so that they can figure out how much they do need you. So give me the 2 favorite places we need to send them right now.
millsknowsbills.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. There's also a place for you to book a phone call with me if you're ready to just chat. However, if you're wanting to get to know me a little bit better, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mills Knows Bills. All of my content on there from the last, 6 months now has been strictly from Josh and his team, and you can tell the difference. It's really good. Yeah,
it's also fun to see that there's growth attached to your work. The world needs it. I know, just a little bit. 180,000%.
Ridiculous amount. That was the highest percent. The next was like 92,000%.
Yeah,
crazy.
Odd growth numbers, but it's just really cool to see. So this has been an incredible conversation. It's always also fun with Mills to talk about these things. I think you'll enjoy the tone and timbre of all of her content. It's got some gravitas when it's important. It's got some lightness and fun when it's able to be light and fun, and it's always going to educate you or challenge you. And you and I both, as entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial minded people, need that. So go find those assets that she's giving you access to for free and enjoy every bit of that. As you know, I have no clue who's going to be on the next episode, but my promise to you always is that this is a vetted person who's going to have value. There's going to be something about their entrepreneurial journey, their understanding of the world of business that is going to benefit you. It might be inspiration, it might be education. Usually we go for both. And I hope you got that out of today's episode, and may you get it from many more. If you have not subscribed, what the hell are you doing? Go subscribe right now. Fix that shite. And on top of that, if you aren't also in our Facebook group, this is, you're surprised I said that, aren't you?
No,
Bootstrapped Unicorns Entrepreneurship and Marketing Group. It's a group on Facebook. It's free. We don't sell in there at all. We might remind you of an episode. We might remind you of a couple of things that are happening in our world, but it's all based on the idea that we're getting information about entrepreneurship to you. But everybody in there is an entrepreneur. And we just start bantering around about ideas, things that are happening. We commiserate. We have all the same challenges. We have different challenges, but a lot of the people in there have owned businesses for a very long time at various scales. Some of them have 30 employees and $30 million in revenue. Some of them are solopreneurs and have been for 25 years, and they are lifestyle entrepreneurs, and they're doing something different. And so whatever you're looking for in your need set, you can ask a question in there, and somebody's going to answer. I see it. I answer all the time. I interact. This is basically a free service based out of passion. And I want you to come participate in that passion. So I will see you in the group. I'll see you on the next episode. Go fix that subscribe trigger finger of yours and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next episode.